Welcome. Happy Tuesday. I'm Elizé, your host. Hello, everyone in the chat. We have Monica and Unicorn and Wade. How you doing? How's Tuesday going for you guys? I know did you guys have off yesterday? I had been doing some furniture updates. I've been doing like a whole makeover for my bathroom, and maybe we'll talk about it later. But that's been the exciting thing for me this weekend. Let us know in the chat what you guys were up to. What were you up to this weekend for your day off? Keshia?
What did I do? I didn't do much this weekend. I had dinner with a friend, got to do some cleaning, per usual, some working out, very chill weekend. It was really good.
Good. That sounds really good.
Yes.
Yes. So everyone, this is Keshia White. I'm going to introduce her a little bit more later, but I want to first let you know, if you've missed it, please check out the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge with Julia Vega every day, every weekday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you guys want to get better at Illustrator, please tune in. There's daily challenges every day. Also, if you are on YouTube, please come on over to Behance so you can join the conversation, be included in the chat, and feel free to ask questions along the stream. Keshia's ready to answer those for you as we go through today's session. So you guys saw a little bit of her, but Keshia White, she is my guest today. I'm super excited. She is a web designer and brand strategist, and she's going to talk about how she creates effective landing pages for her clients. So welcome, Keshia.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to do the live stream with everybody today. So I guess to go ahead and jump into my introduction. Everybody, I'm Keshia White. I'm the owner of a freelance web design business called Keshia and White Designs. And I offer brand and web design services for consultants, coaches, and other professional service providers. That's my little niche of the market that I focus on. And my goal is to help them create a lead generating digital presence online through their design. And I've been a full-time freelancer for 3 calendar years now. This year is actually going into my 4th year, and these years have gone by so fast. It's crazy. And before that, I actually spent 7 years working in corporate sales before taking my web design business full-time. So I'll talk a little bit more about my background in a second, but I have kind of a interesting perspective, I guess, the corporate sales perspective combined with design, which kind of comes together for a cool perspective for my clients. And so here's a little bit of my work. I didn't want to do too much with sharing too many, but wanted to show a few of my projects. And I describe my design aesthetic as very clean, modern, and timeless, because I'm really big on giving clients something that they can stick with for years to come. Like, I don't like to get too trendy when it comes to design necessarily, because I know they're wanting to create something for their businesses that they can use for the long term to represent themselves. So I try to stick to that in the work that I create. So here's one project. This was a logo and web design project for a career coach and speaker. One of my favorites. The client here, she's actually a friend of mine. She picked out her colors for her brand, but I brought it together in this beautiful, modern, clean design for her. And so her business was called Intentional Growth Solutions. So we used her colors to create this beautiful logo with the nice serif font, the little handwritten font here for growth, and then this modern sans serif there for solution. So it came together for a nice, classic, yet modern logo. And then the same for her website, nice, classic, modern, very elegant to match the type of design aesthetic that she wanted. And then here's another project that was one of my favorites. This one is from a bit further back, probably, I think 2019 when I did this one, but it was for a financial advisor. And we wanted to go with a very trustworthy, professional, upscale look for him, because he tended to work with like very high-end clients who were able to invest in his services. So we wanted to make sure it had that high-end, very trustworthy and professional appearance for him. So his brand colors, we worked through all of that together with the blue and the green. And then these nice modern, well, not modern, this is a more classic serif font here to represent him as well. And then this one was really fun. This was actually an old coworker of mine, but for hers, she's a career coach, but she calls herself the career fairy. So she had a really fun approach to career coaching, where her tagline here, as you can see, is find your magic, flourish in your career. So I loved working with her to kind of create a fun look on it for a career coach, instead of something that's kind of cookie cutter in the box of all the other career coaches out there. So we have these fun little accents with like the little squigglies and the little dots, and then very modern photos with modern, fresh offices, because she targeted millennials and like business and in tech, where there tends to be a lot of like color, very modern, casual offices there. So this was her look. And then here's one more. This is one I actually just finished last week, but it's for a mental health coach named Vicky. And she offers mental health coaching for diverse communities. So we did her brand and landing page design. This is actually a landing page similar to what I'm going to do for the project. She wanted it to feel very calming, very fresh and light, and kind of like a place where people could feel safe because they were coming to her for a sensitive issue like mental health. So this was Vicky's there. So just wanted to show a little bit of my work style. We're going to design something a little bit similar, but different today for like a fictional client. But here's a little more information about me here. So I started designing back in 2014 when I started a lifestyle blog. So I wasn't really planning to be a designer. I just wanted to start a blog as like a creative hobby on the side of my 9-to-5. And so as I was designing my own website for the blog, I was like, this could be a really cool skill that I could learn to be able to generate money on my own and not have to necessarily depend on a job, because I really didn't like any of my sales jobs. So I decided to go ahead and learn web design, even though I went to undergrad for marketing, as you can see here. So I would like be at work doing sales all day, and then at night come home and maybe do some web design projects for free just to practice, or be in some kind of little design course or just something like that, so I could just hone my skills to get it up to a professional level. Because my first designs were horrible. Like they were like nobody would have paid me for what I did in the beginning. But anyway, but yeah, it was a bad start.
I was the same.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God, there's no way I could have made real money off of that stuff. Yep. And so I got the courage to eventually leave corporate after I quit my last software sales job in 2018. And I had actually gone on a yoga retreat to Bali. This is a random story, but I was kind of planning to quit before the retreat. It wasn't like that spontaneous to where I was like, yeah, I went to Bali, now changed my life. It was more like I wanted to change anyway before the retreat, but just for some reason I couldn't face my fears to do it until after. So I went ahead, faced the fears, pulled the trigger, and was like, I'm going to give this business a shot. I had some money saved and had a little bit of a following online because I had already been promoting. So I was like, I can just build on the foundation that I built during my time in corporate and just go from there. And if I didn't have anything before I ran out of money, then I could go back to sales. Anyway, but long story short, it worked out. I'm still here 3 years later. And then a little more about me in my free time. I like staying active, hitting the gym, taking walks at the park, going to yoga. And I also like to cook, happy hours, socializing, meeting new people, traveling, binging shows. I love to binge a good show. Yep.
We all do, right? Sometimes too much.
Yeah, sometimes way too much. I'm like, oh goodness, they get the storylines are so good sometimes. Like the Tinder Swindler was one of my favorites recently. I was like, oh my God, but anyway, today's project objectives. So today we're gonna design a landing page, and this is for a fictional consultant. So even though I work with consultants and speakers anyway, I wanted to do a fictional one who was like a wellness consultant. And so I wanted to kind of walk you through like what a real life scenario looks like of how I go through my design process and just kind of the thinking behind it for the kinds of clients that I typically work with. And I always think about every page that I build, whether it's a one-page site or a multiple-page site, I always think like, what are the goals for this page going to be? Like, what do we want the website visitors to actually do once they get here? So the goals of this landing page will be to gain new email subscribers. That's always a valuable thing for clients. Because, well, I used to sell marketing automation software for like email and stuff like that. So we would always tell people like, yeah, I think it was 92%, somewhere around 92% of the people who hit your site are not going to be ready to buy today. So you still need to capture their emails. So I always have that email subscription piece in mind when I talk to clients. And so the second piece is making sure the site is designed to attract new clients for both the consulting services and the speaking services too. And then the third goal is to boost the credibility of the consultant as well, because a lot of what service-based businesses do, it's typically priced at a premium, like a 4-figure rate, like $1,000 and more. So people have to look credible online when they're trying to charge a certain rate. So I always have to tell clients like, hey, if you want people to trust you, you don't want to get these cheap, like price haggler folks, like that's a thing. You have to make sure you're making yourself look credible with the way your site looks. So that's what we're going to make sure it has things to look credible as well. And so the design direction, that it changed my font here in this slide. But anyway, the direction is here. This is the mood board for our design. So the look and feel was intended to be very modern, fresh and trustworthy, and just kind of down to earth, like because brown is actually a color that represents being down to earth. That blue is a good trustworthy color you typically see in a lot of corporate settings. If a lot of corporate logos have blue, but I still wanted to put my own spin on it with the brown and the green and the lighter shade of blue. And then of course, green is a nice color for wellness that represents like health and vitality and all of that. And this font section overlapped a little. Something happened with my slide font, but anyway, but the fonts we're going to use today, Ivy Mode Regular is going to be our headline font. That's this blue font here. And then Muli, M-U-L-I, Muli Regular is going to be our paragraph font. So I wanted to choose a nice, it's kind of elegant and modern headline font that feels a little bit upscale, but still approachable to me. And then the paragraph font, wanted it to feel a little more relaxed, but still very clean lines, easy to read in small letters and all of that. And so here's our process of what we're going to do. First, we're going to wireframe, and then we are going to fill in the wireframes with images from Adobe Stock and from, not Adobe Stock, from my stock images and Adobe Photoshop. But we're going to use XD to do the wireframe for the project. So I'll kind of explain as I fill in each little section, like what I'm doing, and we'll be able to go from there. You'll get to see as I put together each section and how this process typically works when I design one of these landing pages for clients. So
yeah, this is exciting. And I love that you gave so many examples of the clients that you've worked with and the types of landing pages that you've created. Everyone in the chat seems really excited. They really think it does look very clean, really nice. And it's kind of cool because we get to see you break down this process that you do for all your clients. And I am sure that there's tons of people who watch or will watch this that are also like freelancers trying to figure out how they can do what you're doing now. Mm-hmm. So feel free to ask questions in the chat, guys, if you want, around how Keshia's like, how she started her business, how she's a freelancer as well. I mean, I've got questions, but feel free to ask away.
Yeah, definitely ask. I love answering the freelance questions because it's like with me having the business background too, I love that part. So, so definitely ask away. So to get started, I'm adding the colors first in the library in XD so I can have them over here because that way I can just click on colors once I'm ready. So I just grab the darker blue. So I'm gonna pop that in. Oops. And then add that.
So you created the brand guide or the color scheme originally in Photoshop. Is that right?
I did. Yep. So I have a little, let me zoom out a little. My Photoshop is weird today. But I have a little mood board. Well, this is the same mood board from the slide, but I kind of made up the little logo. I found the word I think it's like merger, but Berger. I was telling myself, I'm like, merger is the way you say it, but I was looking up words that meant wellness. So I made up a little name and made a quick little logo. So it means like freshness, vitality, kind of related to that wellness. So we're kind of call it Berger Consulting. And then these are the fonts over here, but yep. So grabbing the colors from Photoshop right quick so we can pop them into XD.
And we have a question from Azalea around the typography. They're asking, do you bring certain fonts to the client and let them pick, or do you pick fonts for the clients?
So I pick out the fonts for them typically, because that's one thing. Every now and then for these landing pages, I'll get somebody who may have picked out some fonts, some colors already, but they never pick out fonts. Unless it's like a logo they done or something like that somebody else did, then they may have a logo already, but like website fonts, they never really even look into that. So I usually will do that for them and then let them pick. And most of the time, that's one thing I never get pushback on, I will say, is fonts. Like sometimes with colors, because I think with clients, they get into their like personal life world of like, I want to color like my room or like my car, or like my favorite jacket. And it's like, this is your business, not your not your personals. Yeah. So sometimes I have to have conversations about what colors can fit for their business, and that kind of thing, and explaining why this color is the better fit and stuff like that. But yeah.
And how do you pick colors then for that individual?
Yeah, so I pick based on, I'll do a kickoff session with people. I call a brand strategy session. So it's like a 2-hour kind of like workshop style call, where I'll go through these questions with the client about like, how do they want their brand to be perceived, and who are the kinds of clients they want to attract, and do they consider themselves like the high end or the mid tier, or whatever positioning they're going to do. And just getting all that background first on their business. And then I choose the colors that fit that information. So like if they want to be perceived as like the mental health coach, for example, like that calming, approachable, safe type feeling, then I went with those calming blues and that type of color scheme for her. Or even like the financial advisor, who want to be perceived as like that trustworthy, upscale type of business. So we went with the nice deep blue and the deep green for him. So just choosing it based around color psychology. I do a lot of research on that when I'm picking the colors for people.
Got it. Yeah, I think that's a good point. Color psychology for not just what you feel like, but what makes sense and what's the energy you want to give off. So I think that's some great advice there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely helps a lot. And I will say too, one more thing, if you ever decide to work with clients, if you have a little quick Zoom meeting with them, I typically do when I present colors and fonts and things, so I can explain why I chose it. So then I tend to get a little less pushback when I do it through a call versus if I just like send them a palette of colors with something typed out or with little explanation, then they would push back more because they're like, I want purple or I want blue, and they don't really know why. So when they understand why I chose something, then they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That aligns with my brand, and that type of thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like you don't just want to send the image, but like actually get them on a call and give them the strategy behind it. And I think it's harder to like, fight against it if there's really a rhyme and reason for everything you've done. And there always should be, I think. So that's a very good point. Freelancer tip number 1.
Yeah. I learned that the hard way because I would have some people asking for so many revisions, and I'm like, how many changes do you want? So later on, I was like, I'm not going to do it that way anymore. I'm going to like present it through two people, and then that helped out so much. But that was a big change. Oops, I don't want to put that. But now I'm saving the little fonts in here in the character style section. Putting my Ivy mode in blue because I think I'm going to end up making the headlines blue. I typically, for some reason, every time I do headlines, end up with whatever the darkest color of the palette was. That ends up being my primary color for headlines. So I'm going to save that and save a little paragraph. Oops, I should have grabbed that Lorem Ipsum. I love our filler text.
And you said everyone has like a different background and different way that they've entered design. And it's always so interesting. And with you having the corporate sales, what are the ways that you learned to do design and learned to freelance?
Yeah, so I learned, at first I was kind of trying to teach myself, and I was like, I'm bad at this. So I didn't really want to do the teach myself route. So I ended up finding a certificate program at like a local school here in Atlanta. I'm based in the Atlanta area. And it was pretty cheap compared to college. It was like $5,000 just for August to May type of course. And they taught us a little bit about design in the beginning. Then they taught about the, what was the next part? The development, the coding part. That's the part I ended up really liking the least, but I was like, at least I understand a bit of it. I know
so
a
you
little
can
bit.
Code as well. I mean, or you can.
Yeah, I can do CSS, HTML, and the rest of it, I'm just like, I'm going to get Upwork to do it. Or I'll just get like some help for the rest of it. But anyway, I can code the simple stuff. So
That's really good to know.
Yeah. So learn there. And then I took one more class because that class to me, it was a little better on the coding because the guy who taught it, he was more of a coder, honestly, than a designer. So I wanted something more from a designer to learn more from her. So I found a design class at a place called General Assembly. And I took design there. And it helped out way more for me to learn a lot more on how to do better mood boards and how to pick out a better color palette and picking out better fonts and all of that. So that one was made me dangerous. After that, I'm like, okay, I'm like, I can do this.
That's amazing.
I actually charge money for it because before I was just scared to charge. I was like, this is so ugly. I can't charge people for this.
Oh, I love hearing like the kind of, the messy ways of how we start a business, right? Like when I was thinking I wanted to like pull up my old first work, my first designs and like just roast them because it's so fun to. It's like, oh, that was not good. And that's okay. Yeah. We all start somewhere. So, it's not always a beautiful beginning.
Not at all. It's like, it definitely came a long way since then. Because if you would have seen my blog, it was, I made up the silly name it was called The Queen Life. So it was like pink everywhere. My little corny logo with a gold crown on top of the Q. And thought I was doing it, but now I'm like, that is not. That's not good design.
We have a question from Raphael for you. What if a client comes to you and wants a design from scratch or a redesign? In terms of problem solving, how would you approach that if a client isn't sure?
Like isn't sure what the direction they want moving forward. So I typically, because I kind of think of design like, I don't know, almost like people don't really, it's kind of almost not their job, I guess, in a way to know what they want. It's kind of our job to tell them what they want. We're not to tell them what they want, more so to like direct them and kind of hold their hand through it. So that's a little bit why I do the kickoff strategy sessions with people to kind of figure out, okay, what is the goal of your design here? And what kind of people should this design like appeal to? Who do you really want to attract with it? And then I kind of give them direction, like, okay, if you're headed this way and you're trying to get like, go from, I don't know, like cheap coaching clients to like high-end consulting clients, you need to kind of look a different way. Because I sort of had one client who came to me with a very feminine, like girly type design. And I was like, okay, if you're trying to do this whole corporate consulting thing, your design is coming off like a blogger. It doesn't really look like a consultant. So we went through the design process to just make recommendations on like, okay, this is what you should look like if you want to accomplish these goals. So kind of you just have to make recommendations to the clients in a way, to me, versus kind of looking for them to tell you what and then that kind of helps guide the process a bit better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. That makes a lot of sense. I think, when he's asking like from scratch or redesign, like you said, Keshia, you're the one to kind of direct that conversation of what you think is best. And that's kind of why they hire you. So I think that that's a good approach. And so that's a really good question though, because that does come off. There's always like the challenge with having a client and pushback and back and forth. And I think that's why people get scared to start freelancing, is like, like what I think is best versus what they think is best. So but I think having that strategy conversation early on is really important.
Yeah, that helps a lot. And then sometimes I will say some clients, if you kind of talk to them and they can't, some people you just can't budge with, I will say. So even if their preferences, if they have really strong preferences, those people, I'm just like, okay, I just want to finish your project. So
like, okay, you want this crazy color? Sure. You want rainbow? Let's do it. Let's just be done with it.
So it's like, I'll make my recommendation, but also don't take it personal. I will say that's something I kind of had to learn too. If they don't like your recommendation and they want something else, like I will say those kind of projects, they don't go in my portfolio. I'm like, you're not going to mess up my portfolio with your preferences that I didn't recommend. But sometimes you'll have people, no matter how you explain it to them, they'll just be super strong on their preferences. So don't feel bad. All of us have that. So just some people, you just got to get them out the door.
I agree.
And give them what they want sometimes, but
So what are you working on right now?
So I'm kind of working on like this top header. I don't think I want that. I was trying to decide if I wanted to overlap with an image. I think I'm just going to do text over here to the left with this image to the right. Because with the top header, so I always say like that's a really important supported section for clients who are selling a service, because this is the section that people see first. It's like the top of the newspaper, the above the fold is what it is. Yeah. So this is what people are going to see when they first read the website. So you want to make sure some kind of, I call it a benefit statement. I typically encourage clients to have that says something about the top benefit of what they offer at the top. I'm just kind of making up copy here because I get copywriters in if people want somebody to write their copy. But yeah, so some type of benefit statement at the top telling what they do. And then a call to action with the top action that they want people to take. So most clients, since they're typically in that consulting coaching space, they usually want people to schedule like a discovery call as their first step. So we'll have some kind of link here for people to schedule that initial discovery consultation. So I'll make a little button right here too. So this is our little above the fold section. And then I guess one little piece, this image here, it was just a little, why is this so big? Meant to be like a little decorative image of people working in an office, like similar to what, just some kind of modern office that fits the look and feel of the brand. Very bright, modern office, little plants. I like the plant because the plants was a bit of an element included in the design, in the mood board. So yep, so went with that for how the office looks here. And with one more little thing, the decorative elements, so I added a little, I don't know what to call these. I just call them a blob. That's probably not the real.
Looks like a blob, yeah.
Yeah, not the real terminology for it. But I added a little like blob down there for a decorative element, and then the zigzag pattern. And I was going to use those two items throughout the design for like our ways to accent the images, because it's rare that I put just really plain images on somebody's page because they get kind of boring, or they look like something that the client could have made on their own. So I like to do something to decorate an image, whether it's something like this or maybe even a rectangle on the background, like as a rectangle laid on the image. Sometimes I'll layer an image with another image, depending on the kind of look and feel that client needs to give it a little more visual interest on there. So.
Got it. Yeah, great. And I forgot, what you said it was a wellness client, but what kind of client?
So like a wellness consultant. So like someone who would maybe come into like a corporation and tell people like, okay, you need to get up and stretch or.
Okay, got it. Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, like one of those types. Yeah, because I had one girl in it when I had an online course. Her business, it was called Mako Mindfulness, and she would kind of help people do stress management and come into corporate and consult on that. So it was kind of inspired by her. I'm like, her name was Amanda. Hey, Amanda. I don't know if she's, but I was like, yeah, I like Amanda's business, so I'm gonna kind of do a business inspired by her for this. But
yeah, that's an important thing that we don't always think about. So I think that's great. And so you typically have the hero image and you have some like value at the top, and then you include a call to action. Are those like the main elements that you typically try to include for your landing pages?
They are, yep, for this top area. So those are the main elements for the top, because for most people, they're pretty similar for this top space. And then the next spaces are pretty, I do kind of follow a similar flow for each person, but for this top area is usually definitely just like this for that. I'm trying to make this small enough. I'm gonna make this white for the buttons. We have this green button here. Oh, there it is.
And you mentioned like that you give this off to someone else, like a developer on Upwork typically. Is that kind of your process, or what do you do after you've designed it before to hand it off to your client?
Yeah, so that's what I want to start doing. Like so far, I build with either Squarespace or WordPress with the Divi builder.
You do it. You do it all.
Yeah, right now. Yeah. So with those, all I have to do is a little CSS or HTML type of coding, since they're more so drag and drop builders instead of like a coding the whole website from scratch. Because when people ask me, I'm like, who's doing that in 2021? It's like, you don't really have to with the builders like a Squarespace or even a Wix. I never used Wix, but I hear Wix is a good one for that too. And then I do have to do a lot of like I said, little CSS stuff if I want certain backgrounds to be a certain color, or a certain font to be a certain color, and a certain background. But I do want to hand it off to a developer soon. I've tried my first one, I will say, like 2 weeks ago. It was different because he kind of skipped a lot of the little design customizations that I usually follow. So I'm kind of wasn't used to that. I was like, he didn't see that the bullet points were yellow or just like little things like that I typically like to customize, because I guess I do a lot of custom tweaks to my stuff, because like I said, I don't want it to look like something that the clients could have done themselves. So he kind of overlooked a lot of my little custom design tweaks, and I'm like, so I'm going to try somebody else next. But yeah, so usually I do it all, but I'm trying to get a developer on soon.
Yeah. Try new things out. I think that's great.
Yeah, to save time, because it's like a lot, because I'm having more work since I've been doing it for a little bit longer, a bit more projects that I used to have. So it's been a lot more time consuming with doing too many projects, trying to take all the steps when you have a lot more clients than I used to in the past. So trying to figure out how to manage it all.
Well, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, finally, after almost 4 years of doing it. That's why I tell people, I'm like, stick with it, whatever you do, because you have to stick with it long enough to kind of get known for whatever it is that you do and build your referral base up and all of that. But if you quit too soon, then you would never get there because you didn't give it enough time. So definitely stick with it if anybody's in the new area.
Yeah, the tenacity, just keep on going, keep practicing, get better. And kind of go through the uncomfortable bits.
And definitely keep marketing, promoting yourself for sure, because it takes time for people to find you sometimes when you're new, but once they find you and you do good work, they'll be back.
So how do you typically market yourself and get new clients?
Yeah, so I will say I tried some of everything under the sun and kind of wasted money on like business coaches or all kinds of stuff to figure it out. But the way that ended up working the best for me was LinkedIn. And yeah, because I was kind of shocked too. And they like stories on LinkedIn. Like stories about your personal life that you wouldn't even think they care about, but they actually do enjoy that stuff on LinkedIn. So that helped. And maybe because of my target audience too, since it's the consultant space. So there's a lot of like consultants up there, really active on there. So that helped the most, that and then referrals from old clients. Because I found Instagram kind of tough for me, because on there you can't really tell who's a target client and who isn't. It's like, because people just go on Instagram with like made up names, and I don't know, it's just not very strategic, because it's like, yeah, people can follow you, but I don't know what they do or how to get them to see my work anyway.
And
so that's easiest.
That's great. And as far as LinkedIn goes, is it you're getting exposure just from posting a ton, or like what are you putting out there that people are seeing around you that they're getting excited about?
Yeah, so it's a combination of kind of like a little personal brand building, I'll say. It's kind of the way I do. So a lot of it has to do with positioning myself as an expert in design, but also telling a little bit of my personal story a bit, so people can kind of connect with me as a person too. So I kind of have a flow. I'll do like a mix of like maybe 3 business posts per week and then 1 personal post per week. So I kind of feel like I always say, I try to feel like a human online instead of doing all business posts, because it's like I'm kind of private, so I'm not a big social media person in general, but I just share the personal stuff, but it's from certain topics. So it may be a business story or like a story from corporate, or maybe something about working out or food. I have certain areas I stick to, but even that's just enough to make people feel like, oh, I can connect with her and I feel like I know a little bit about her. And then the other 3 posts will be something design related, where I may talk about elements of a effective landing page, kind of something talking like this type of stuff, or what else? Elements, things that you need to look credible online in your industry, just kind of little topics that my target clients would find useful or find helpful. So those are like the other 3 posts. And then one more thing, I do a lot of 1 or 2 lives a week too. And those kind of make it easier because you don't have to do all that typing. So you can just get on there, talk right quick, and give your quick little tips, and then you're done. So those lives are kind of helpful as well.
Okay. This is all like very great, juicy information for anyone who wants to freelance. It seems like, to recap, you do like 3 business posts, tips for your clients that they would really like, plus a personal piece and some live streaming as well once a week, all on LinkedIn. That has helped you really find your client base. And it sounds like you're doing really well, that you are now like have too much work, it seems. So
yeah,
listen up, people.
Yeah, it helped me out a lot. And then it's free, because I had so many coaches who would be like, spend thousands on Facebook ads a month. And I'm like, I don't have that. Like, I didn't like have that big of a budget for the ads to even do that. And then I actually dabbled in LinkedIn ads, and it wasn't worth it. It's better to do organic on LinkedIn. And then the other piece is adding people who have the title of your target client. So people are seeing it, because that's what, like I said, with Instagram, it's like I have no idea who's seeing it. It could be a puppy. It could be a I was like puppy pages on Instagram. So I'm like, I don't know. But at least on LinkedIn, like if you're targeting, let's say you target health coaches, or you target fashion stylists, I don't know. It's pretty much anybody. You can see their job title. So like, okay, I'm targeting people who actually need what I have to offer right now. So that's a good plus too.
Yeah, that's a great point. Really great point. Also, we are about 35 minutes into the stream. We have Keshia on talking about her freelance journey and all her tips and tricks. She's given us tons of knowledge thus far. She's working on a landing page for a wellness coach, and she's giving us her tips on kind of how she structures a landing page as well. There's tons of questions that are coming in now. I think people are really excited about this advice. But before I get into it, I want to ask kind of, where are you at now with this section? Is this what's going on in here? And like, what are we designing? Is this like a call to action?
Yeah, so this section is an email download section. So I like to have that underneath the first top banner section. So the first top call to action is usually schedule a discovery session. So I usually consider the email one more like a secondary call to action. So since it's secondary, it'll be the second thing they see on the page. So it's a little section talking about download their free guide on how to relieve stress in the workplace, with the little first name, email address, sign up area, and trying to decide on the button color. I kind of been playing around with colors. If anybody has a tip, or even a background color, because I was kind of thinking about making this dark blue. Maybe I should make it dark blue instead of this color. I don't like that. I don't know. These colors kind of are very intercapable. So anything could go. Yeah,
the blue's kind of nice too.
Blue. Yeah, I might leave it there. But yeah, so this will be the little email sign up. And I like to, when I do this for clients, have a little graphic that kind of fans out the pages of the email download. But I don't have one for this particular one. So we'll just go with it, with what we have.
Do your clients typically have some sort of free guide already? Or is this something you recommend to your clients to do? Like, okay, you need to give them something in order to get that email.
Yeah. So I usually, most of them I will say I do have to recommend. Yeah. Because they don't typically think about it until they come to me and they're getting their site done. And they're like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. I should collect emails. So then we ended up designing it. Well, I ended up designing it for them after I recommended it. So yeah. And then I'll throw that in as a bonus, since those are pretty quick. I try to tell them to do something quick, like a checklist or like a guide to wear something fast that I could throw together right quick for them and connect it to the website for them. So a little bonus.
That's another big tip. Like you were talking about, like receiving those emails, and this is giving more, just helping out the client more with the value you're giving by not just thinking about the design, but you're also thinking about the strategy and how to receive those contact information and build up their client base. So this is really just like showing your value as a freelancer.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got lots of questions, so I have to like get through some of these. So we have lots of people saying like they're loving the advice, they're really needing this. So I just wanted to mention that. Okay. So we have a question searching for the truth. They ask, what is a good hourly rate to charge clients as a beginner, and how many hours do you give? What is your recommendation for this?
Yeah, so I will say one thing with me, I don't like hourly rates. I like packages.
Okay.
Yeah. So even if you're a beginner, I still recommend packaging something, because it's going to be hard to make money as an hourly type person. You'll find yourself working more and more. just to make enough money. So I recommend making some kind of package, like either a one-page website package, which is actually one of my main top sellers right now, create a one-page site package, maybe to start small, and then maybe have a multiple page package, and just, I don't know, I kind of package based on the value I feel like I'm providing for the client, and then the amount of time I feel like I can like take on projects. So I'm like, okay, if I'm doing this, I feel like it's valuable enough to charge $1,000 for it. It's kind of a sticky thing to figure out what your pricing should be. But I definitely recommend doing the package route. And then if people want to add stuff on, I'll do hourly, because I'm like, okay, you want to add an extra page on, or you want to hire me again to do some updates to your website, I'll do that hourly. So then you can kind of come up with the hourly rate for that, maybe starting at 50 an hour or something. Because I'm up to like 125. I just made my hourly rate up. I'm up to 125 an hour now, and I just stuck it there since I went full time. But hopefully that helps a little bit, I hope.
Yeah, I think it's a good point to like, maybe it's best not to just do hours, depending on, the type of project. It also depends on where you live as to what that hourly rate is going to be, and what feels good to you as well, and what other competitors are charging probably. But I think that's a really great point about packages. So like, instead of like, it's going to be this many hours, it's like, okay, these are my 3 packages. They can pick like different, which one works best for them. What do you have for your package? Like, how much is this particular landing page package?
Yeah, so this package is $1,500. So I do feel like that's probably a little bit high for a one page, but I was trying to create something that would be a lower tier option, because my main package for a full page site plus brand identity design is $6,000 for that package. So I will say there's been changes in my business over the last year. Like that bigger package, it used to be my top like seller, and I didn't even have a second package. But it started selling a lot slower last year for some reason. And then I used to have an online course that I sold that was about $1,300. So I was like, okay, I didn't want to sell the course anymore. And I wanted to come up with something that was comparable to how much my course was priced at. So I was like, I could just do a one-page package, just the same, similar price range. And something that's kind of quick for me to do, because my course didn't sell. I had a really bad experience with online courses. Last year, that was a super fail, but things happen in business. But anyway.
We'll have to talk about that later.
Yeah. That was like, oh goodness, it was harder to sell those than I thought. I was like, I thought it was going to be easier than it actually turned out to be in real life. That was, but
yes. Yeah. But it's always a good lesson to learn. So we have another question from Haley. Do you have the option for your clients to pay online?
So I have them all paid through invoices is the way I have them paid. So I only use one invoice tool, and I'll send everybody that invoice once there's time for them to pay. Oh, and I will say one thing on paying, make sure you get people on a payment schedule. Because I used to make them have people pay by project milestones. And I'm like, it used to be like, okay, once we get to this milestone, then you pay. But sometimes there's delays on the part of the client that can delay when you get to the milestone. And then you could be waiting on your payment thinking it was coming, and depending on that. So if you just agree upon a schedule and put it in writing in a agreement or contract, and make sure they sign that too. Like for people to work with me, they have to sign the contract and pay. Like if they just pay, I remind them, I'm like, hey, you didn't sign the contract yet. And I get them to sign off on it, because I just don't want to be stuck. If people ask for like extra work, or is it the thing I mentioned with the milestones, like, the payment schedule, you signed it, you agreed upon it. And then that kind of helps people, you get payments on time and stuff too. So
that's another great point. So tell us what you're designing here now.
So this section is kind of meant to be like a pain point section. So I typically recommend clients have a section like this, where maybe like, does this sound like your employees, or does this sound like where you are right now? And it'll have maybe some issues that the person is going through that will resonate with them. And to me, this is a good section, because it kind of helps people making sure they're speaking to the target clients they want to attract. Because a lot of times I'll use it as a bit of a qualifying section to be like, because even on like my site for my bigger package, I prefer to work with experienced entrepreneurs for that package. So I might have some stuff on there like, hey, does this sound like you? Have you been working in your business for a while? And now you're ready to elevate your image online, to make sure like the language pertains to the experienced person versus the beginner. So when the beginner sees that, they're like, oh, this is not for me. So it helps you to attract the people that are for you and repel the ones that aren't, with this little like kind of pain point section there. So for like this one, it could be like, yeah, are your employees stressed? I don't know.
Okay, great. Yeah. So you're talking about, now here's the place where I love that you're talking about like defining who your persona is. So we're doing, user research here, understand your clientele, the problems and challenges that they're having and making sure that is really apparent in this landing page as well. So there's the problem and then you are the solution, right? So
yep.
We have a question from Devane. So interesting that the one page is a top seller. Why do you think that is? Have you had people come back later to buy the bigger full site package?
Yeah, so I will say this one page is still new. So I just came up with it probably like last summer, because even up until last spring, people were still more so buying the multiple page. So I haven't had anybody come back yet. I had them talk about coming back, who I had like just finished the one page package for, but they haven't quite yet since it's still so new. But I think maybe, I don't know, for some reason I feel like my target clientele, even though I would prefer the experienced people, it has been lately a bit more people just getting things off the ground, like newer businesses have been finding me more. So with them, I can tell that that's a more affordable option for them. And then I still get a few people come in for the bigger package, but they're the experienced folks. They tend to be fewer and far between for my inquiries now, where before most of my inquiries were experienced people, but now for some reason they've kind of fallen back, and I get a few of them, but just not as many as I used to. And I don't know why. Maybe the experienced people just are happy with their websites. I don't know. Not sure.
I also wonder if like in the last few years, more and more people are trying out side businesses. Yeah. And so there's probably just like more of them out there now who need just like a beginner site to start with. They don't want to invest yet. They don't have the money to invest in something quite expensive. That's my assumption, but just from what I've seen, more and more people with the side hustles.
That's a good point. Yeah. Cause I guess after the recession, what was the pandemic? They say a lot of people were like leaving the workplace and stuff like that. So I don't know, maybe they just are like, yeah, let me go ahead and jump on this idea that I've been sitting on for all this time after they saw what happened with the pandemic last year. So
I'm also seeing some new people coming in to the stream. Welcome. I'm with Keshia. We have been about like maybe halfway, 2/3 with designing a landing page. And she's been telling us all her tips and tricks of one, creating a landing page that's really quite effective for her clients, but also just general tips and tricks around freelancing and starting her business. So she started almost 4 years ago. Now she's getting really busy. She's talking about how she prices things, how she provides value to her clients. So this is all really juicy, great information for all of those who want to start freelancing as well. Feel free to put your questions in the chat. Let us know. We've been like nonstop talking, to be honest, nonstop questions. So I feel like people are really excited about this topic.
That's great.
We have more questions though. But before that, what are we designing now?
So this is like a little quote. So kind of more like a section. It doesn't really have a purpose. I would say my other sections have purpose, but this one is just cute. but I just wanted to put some kind of like quote in there that kind of hits home the benefit a little bit. So of course, as a corporation, if that's who the consultant was going after, they want to get productive employees, I'm sure, people who function at their best. So we're kind of telling them it starts with healthy, happy employees, or like a little call out quote of like a benefit of wellness, I guess. So just kind of making it cute. Oops, wait, didn't draw the line straight.
So I have another question here around from Voodoo Val. Do you struggle with that as someone who uses it for work too, she's talking about social media and not so much personal. Meaning like it's not as natural to use social media. So do you ever feel like it's not as, because you said you don't use it so often for your personal self, do you struggle with that for your business, or not as much, not so much?
I don't necessarily, because it's kind of like, I hate to use the word artificial, but but I will say my social presence is a little bit artificial now. Because it's kind of routine now. So I'll be like, okay, I know I'm doing my 3 posts on this per week, and then my personal posts. And for my personal, like I legit stick to like a core of topics. So it may be fitness, food, maybe occasionally travel if I have to go somewhere, or some kind of like work related story, whether it's some work about my business or work about corporate. And literally that's it, because I don't feel like sharing anything else. So I just keep it around those topics. So to me, it's not a struggle when I stay within my topics that are in my comfort zone to share. And then it kind of helps with personal branding too, in a way, because then people kind of start to know you for certain topics, versus if you're sharing a whole bunch of random stuff anyway, then people are like, what is this person known for?
Yeah. I think that's a great point. Maybe I think it's a great point for people who don't want to share so much personal information, but know that they should, to feel like other people connect with them more. But I think it's a great tip that you're giving, which is just pick a couple of topics that are safe for you. And also to your second point of, and you're known for that and they know what to expect from you. So I think that's a really good strategy for people who are a little less comfortable to be so personal on social.
Yeah, because people do too much. Some people, it wasn't me. It's too, I'm like, I don't want to do all that. I just want clients. I mean, I'm gonna say one more thing. Even with Instagram Reels, like nothing wrong with it, but I'm like, I do not want to dance. I tried it, and I was like, this is not fun for me. Because I see some people that think it's fun, and I'm like, I don't think I'm doing any more Reels. I'm just gonna stick to like what's working for me. So even if it's a trend that you see is working, don't feel pressured to participate in the trend if it's not aligned for you. Because I'm like, I don't feel like pointing at the screen about
I tried it the other day too. I was like, because normally I was talk through my Reels, and I was like, I'm gonna try one of the dancing ones.
Yeah,
I was like sweating because like I had the spotlights on. I'm sweating. I'm pointing. Am I supposed to point now? Is that like? And it was really. I was like, I'm not doing this, and I didn't post it.
Yeah, I'm just like, I tried it last year. I was like, okay, they're really working and getting people a lot of reach, but I just like, I don't know. When then you're busy with your work too, because if you didn't get into this for social media, you got into it because you want to design. It was like pretty much me. I just found it as an easy way to get clients, not because I was enjoying social media. So you kind of have to find your happy way of using social media in between your client work. Oh, and then one more tip. I will say this is a lazy tip that I do, but I recycle captions now for my business related tips, because a lot of times people don't really read the whole thing anyway. So if you kind of reword a caption a little bit, I have pretty much enough captions for like 2 months with about 3. Wow. So then in that 3rd month, I kind of recycle it, and people don't even notice. Like,
wow, interesting.
Like, or even your live video topics too. You can kind of remix the topic and mix a couple of the words up a little bit, but people don't really. They're like, oh, good information. Yeah, great.
Yeah. Well, I think also maybe it's going to be a different audience 3 months later anyway that's seeing it. So you get to just like reuse that, and you don't have to come up with something fresh every time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it takes too long. Because I used to really struggle with juggling social media and my client work, and it was just hard. I would like get a lot of clients and then stop posting, and then you lag with clients. That's a common freelancer problem too. Like, we do a bunch of marketing, and then we get filled up, and then we need new clients again, kind of thing. But anyway, and I was like, I'm tired of like falling off. I just want to be consistent. So I was like, well, what can I do to try to be consistent? So my best way was to kind of recycle captions like that. And that helped a lot. So even if I'm busy, I'm like, let me just remix this caption a little bit, or remix the live video title and send it out as an email again.
Ooh, and I'm gonna take this.
yeah, because it's the only way that I've been consistent with like the amount of work that I have now. Because if I had this amount of work now, I probably would have been disappeared on social media since December. But I've still been up there. Yeah, because it gets hard to try to juggle both sides, unless you have somebody doing social media for you, which I did try, but the it wasn't worth the money for the way I did it. Maybe if you do it a different way, it might be worth the money, but for the way I did it, it wasn't. So I'm just going to keep this in house and look for developer help and put the money over there instead. But anyway, so.
Yeah, these are like the struggles of a solopreneur who's doing it all, and we're expected to do it all, and that could be quite challenging. So we have to come up with these hacks to keep the business running. I love
keep
that.
all the plates in the air. Yep.
So Bex is asking, because you're into Photoshop right now, actually, so it's a good time to ask this. They ask you, it seems you prefer to design in XD versus Photoshop. Can you tell us how you choose the program you design in? Because they've seen other people design wireframes and pages in Photoshop.
Yeah, I actually do that too normally. So I gotta confess, I just did XD for the stream here. So this is kind of, I would say XD is a little bit easier to wireframe in, but it's just saving my graphics and stuff. I like to do the graphics in Photoshop to get the layering and all of that. Because I'm kind of saving a graphic now. I just pulled in a stock image with kind of like this fresh, healthy look with one of my little blobs and the zigzag. But I do typically do my mock-ups in Photoshop. But today I'm doing XD because it's a little bit better on my system. I had to, behind the scenes stuff, I had to get a new computer. My Photoshop is kind of slow right now.
Yeah, XD works a little bit faster. So if your computer's a bit slower, you might not want to do everything in Photoshop because it's a bit heavier and might lag a little.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I hear you. Also, we had another question from Christine. What is the best way to translate your design that you're doing now to WordPress or another site builder? What's your process for that?
Yeah. So this is something I had to learn over time too. So before I would kind of just build section by section and save assets section by section. But now it's so much faster. I know a lot of people probably know this already. You probably think I sound slow, but if I save all of my assets first, like from my wireframe or from my mockups, like having all that saved, and then I'll have a folder for each page if it's a multiple page site. So it'll be like homepage. Okay, saving all the graphics from the homepage, all the backgrounds for the homepage in the homepage folder, in the services folder, and the about, and so on from there. And with all those assets saved, it's so much faster. So then I'll have my little mock-up open on the Adobe Photoshop screen, and then open up the website builder, and then just go section by section. So I'm like, okay, it's homepage, section 1, and need this image and this text. Then section 2, this image, this text, and I can just plop the images in pretty quick since they're all saved in the folders already, versus kind of saving and building. I used to save and build simultaneously, and that was a lot slower for me. But
got it. And do you typically do your whole design mock-up like this ahead of time, where you design the whole thing, or do you have to work around with the Squarespace template, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I usually do a whole mock-up myself this way, and then I don't really use the templates. I like delete everything in the template, and then I just use the drag and drop functionality in the builder. So like kind of dragging the blocks where I want them to be to get it to look the way I want it to look, type of thing.
Got it.
Something
helpful. Great. There's so many questions. Okay, so here we have another one. Thank you guys for all the questions.
I know,
this is like popping. This chat is popping.
Oh, good.
Butch asks, how does development work as a freelancer? Do you partner with a developer? So you talked about this a little bit earlier, but you talked about working with a developer recently for the first time. They didn't do all like the details that you wanted, but how do you find another developer? How is that process for you?
Yeah, so I've been kind of doing it the easy way with doing Upwork.com is where I've been looking now, because my budget, I will say, is small. So it's not like a budget for like a real developer job. So I've been trying to look for cheaper help for the developer part. So Upwork has been a good affordable place that other entrepreneurs have recommended for me. So I'm going to try somebody else on there and add some better filtering questions. So one of the questions I didn't ask to the guy who I got first was he used to doing custom designs? Because he kind of seemed like someone who was probably used to doing templates, honestly. And that's why I think he overlooked a lot of the details, because he wasn't used to having to even pay attention to that stuff, because he's probably using templates in like WordPress or something, which is nothing wrong with that, but that's not what I'm building. I'm building something I've created out of my head. So anyway, so that's one question I've got definitely want to add, or have they done the custom stuff before? And I want an example. And what else? I forgot what else I was gonna. I had a different second question on there because I was looking for somebody else last week too. But yeah, just making sure they have experience in exactly what you want them to do, and trying to see if you can get examples of it is a good way to find someone, hopefully.
Yeah, that's a really good point and a really good question to ask, to make sure that they can do it like you're imagining or that you've designed it. Yeah, I love that. We have another question from Dopegasm. What is important to have on a landing page to convert to transactions?
So definitely the benefit statements, like this type of stuff. Like, this isn't how I write it for real. I give people like a copywriting template, but usually we want something a bit more impactful, but something about that top benefit that they offer to their target clients, and then like a pain point section to kind of qualify people a little bit. And then this is kind of like meant to be an extra benefit section. I don't know. We can help you do like whatever your result is, like making sure people have a lot of that on there. And maybe our so that kind of thing, like anything that speaks to the benefits that the clients offer is one of the biggest parts, because sometimes people just list their packages on there with like a price and maybe some little bullet points of what's in the package, and it's like then you start to look like everybody else sort of when you do that. So if people can really articulate the benefit of their package on a page, that helps a lot. And then credibility items like a testimonial section or press or features help boost credibility if it's a client that has that type of stuff. And then I like to do a short about section too, so to kind of have the person share a little bit about their background and what qualifies them to do the work that they do. So that's super important too. So those are the main things: the benefits, the testimonials, press and features, and then a short about section kind of talking about what qualifies them really helps.
Yeah, that's great. And you also have, that content, and you also had 2 calls to action as well. So there's like a kind of a pick your own adventure depending on where you're at. You had that email capture as well as like the discovery setup. Is this a framework, or like how you've structured this page is kind of the same framework you do for every client? Like that's all, like this is what you need to do for a landing page, and this is something that someone else can follow? Or do you have to really personalize it much?
Yeah, so I do typically do this same flow since all of my clients are in similar industries for all of them pretty much. And the copy will be different depending on the specific service that they offer. So I have them like write their own copy or hire a copywriter. Who I have 2 copywriters I connect people to if they want to add copywriting on to their projects. So yeah, so it's still a pretty similar like content of the website though. And sometimes the copywriters, if they hire one of them, then they'll kind of add things based on their recommendations as the writing expert. And I'm like, yeah, feel free to add anything that you feel like needs to be added, or omit anything. Cause I give them a little outline to follow, but they don't have to like follow it to the T. I just give it to them to help them get started sort of. But
yeah, that's really great advice, because I found that, earlier on in my career, I thought I had to do the writing, and, it's good for people to know that they don't have to put on that hat either. If you're not a good writer, that could be additional, like if you are a good writer, that could be additional service that you charge for. But otherwise, like, I think it's great, Keshia, that you have a couple writers that you could suggest for them to use, and maybe people that you feel pretty confident and comfortable with. So that's really great. And Voodoo Val's asking, how did you go about finding a copywriter?
So with those 2, that will say I didn't really have to look for them necessarily, because one, I was lucky to find her through a business coaching program that I was in. And she was a writer for the guy who ran the program. So when we were running Facebook ads with him, he would have her look over our ad copy, and I liked what she wrote for my ads and ended up hiring her. I was like, can I hire her? So hired her for my copy. So that was great. And then the other one was actually one who a previous client of mine found on her own. And then, so I ended up liking what she wrote for that client. And so now I keep her in my back pocket too, like if they need a different copywriter. So I kind of found them in a lucky way like that. But they're all over too. Like if you go on LinkedIn or even Instagram and just kind of type copywriter, you'll see a bunch of them. And I recommend checking out their portfolios of what they've written for before, and maybe having an informative call with them to see, or how do they feel about working with a designer. And then, seeing if you two can partner together on projects. It's definitely helpful. And people like that because they like having help with their writing, because a lot of people hate writing. So.
Yeah, a lot of designers don't love to write. We're like, we're more visual. We don't want to write.
Yeah, not at all. I'm like, you didn't hire me for that because you might have some typos. I'm not trying to.
Gotta be real with what your strengths are. We also have a question around, you talked about you typically send invoices and you use an invoice system to collect payment. What is that system that you use?
So I use Wave, WAVE, and it's free. The only thing they do, well, all of them I'm sure have transaction fees, but overall it's free. It looks professional because you can upload your logo on there to make you look official, like you got an official invoice from your business. So it's definitely a nice free one to use.
So it's free to use, but you still just have to have the fees for any sort of transactions.
Yep, your transaction fees. Yep.
We also have another question from Rashida. How do you find a template that matches the mockup you created in XD or Photoshop? Okay, so you kind of chatted about this regarding, you create a mockup and then you don't use a template. You just like start from scratch and you do the drag and drop from, and you use Squarespace, right?
Yeah, that's my primary one. And occasionally to get the same functionality in WordPress, I use a theme called a Divi theme, DIVI. And you can upload that theme into WordPress and it gives you the same block functionality that you could get over in Squarespace or like Wix too. Yep. So those make it a lot easier.
And then we have another question from Philip. Is there a good resale source for client contracts or boilerplate contracts?
There is one. I think it was called Jotform, I think. JOTFORM. That I used to recommend to people because I never did pay for an official agreement, but on there they have agreements for different industries and you can pick one that aligns with design and put your business name and your scope of work in there and use that for your business. So yeah.
And you said that was free?
I believe so. Let me double check the name, but yeah, it was called JOT Jotform. And it's free too, free templates on there.
Oh, great.
Yep. Yeah, that's it. Jotform.com, 100 plus free contract templates. Yep.
Great. Look, you are just a world of knowledge for everyone today.
Yeah.
Is anyone like excited to start their freelancing projects after this?
Yes. I want to hear about the new clients.
Yeah. We have a question here about what is your biggest obstacles or learning points as a designer for you? And you're like 4 years in now. And so you accumulate a lot of experience, but where are you at now?
So I will say, what could be now? I'm trying to kind of get my designs to be a bit more elevated now, because sometimes I think I get too carried away with color palettes. It depends on, because some of them I'm like, ooh, this one aligns with the message and this one aligns with the message, and it's like 4 or 5 kind of bold colors, and I'm like, they don't need that many colors. Some people's brands do need, not need, but could benefit from that many bold colors, but not everyone. So I tend to kind of, I think I may overdo color sometimes because I have a little sticky on my computer right now that says simple color palette right now. To just remind me to we keep the color palette simple. So that's one thing I kind of been working on is, and I feel like I'm a little bad at graphic design, which is why I do want to get somebody to help with that part. Cause I'm more so like, the website part, you would think they kind of overlap, but I feel stronger in designing websites than I do graphics. And it's probably my fault because I put a graphics bonus in my package, I don't know who would do that if you're not good at it, but
hey, that's to the eye of the beholder, right? Like maybe you think it's not great, but
yeah, they're
someone
okay.
else thinks it's great.
Yeah, and I feel like they take me too long because you know how when you're strong at something, you can do it a little bit faster versus if you're just kind of so at it. So I feel like they kind of take me too long to do. And I could just probably get somebody who's better at it who can pump them out faster because I'll be just moving stuff around for way too many hours. But that one, I don't think I necessarily want to worry about getting better at. I just probably want to find somebody who can do the graphic design parts and I just focus on the UI UX website part.
Yeah, I really like that because we don't have to be great at all the things, so we can, as an entrepreneur, you are finding other people with those strengths to build out your little, mini team that you have. So I think that that's really great advice there. We have a question from Paula. How do you manage the screen size? Where you do the layout to be proportional in different devices or different screen sizes?
Oh yeah, that's a challenge. Because sometimes, because with my computer screen, sometimes I can't see stuff, and like if my client has a different screen and they're like, it's not aligned on this screen, and I'm like, yes, it is. But but anyway, but there's a tool called I think it's called screensize.com or something like that. Screentest.com. But anyway, but I recommend one of those screen preview tools and it'll resize your work. It does have to be live on the internet though already. But at least you can be aware before you send it over to your client that it may be a different size on like a jumbo Mac screen versus on your tiny laptop. And you can put little tweaks in if you know CSS in your CSS to make, because there's things you can do to make images smaller or larger on certain screen sizes. So it's not doing that all over the place. But definitely check one of those screen test tools. I think it's called screentest.com or screensize.com or something like that. But yeah, they help.
Got it. Yes. I also feel like probably a lot of those website templates like Squarespace and Wix, if you design for one, they usually give you the option too to see the different screen sizes and they kind of automatically do a responsive resize and then you can adjust, right? Like, I mean, that's what I've done on Wix back in the day.
So
it kind of helps.
Yeah, that definitely helps for like the cell phone screen size because those are not bad. It's just sometimes I run into problems with the desktop ones, like for those big desktop monitors, because you can't see that on your desk. You can just see your desktop size on like a Squarespace or Wix, but then if your client has a bigger desktop size, it can be thrown off. But the cell phone preview is really good in those tools. Yeah.
So where are you working on right now?
So this is a short section about the 2 service options that the person would offer. So they'll be offering consulting and speaking. So this speaking one isn't my favorite, but it's close enough. It's just kind of like an audience image of like what a speaker might be talking to, and then like a consulting image to kind of represent the 2 service options that the person's going to offer. So we kind of have, I guess, my little flow. I have a little pain points, a quote, benefits, and then the services in the service area.
Got it. Yeah, it's looking really great.
Yeah, thank you.
Carlene's asking, after you've laid out a design in XD, how do you export it? Or how does Adobe have a way to display a website like this? So you talked about your exporting experience. Do you ever do it in XD or do you typically do it in Photoshop? And what's that export process like?
Yeah, so a lot of times since I'm building it myself, I don't really export it often. Every now and then I will, and when I use Photoshop, I use a tool called Envision to put my prototypes in there. But with XD, this is probably why I should be using XD. You can just, do share links where your clients can just view it with the XD links, I believe. Because with this link access, anybody can view the link and review it. And I do know just XD, do they have a commenting functionality? Like if clients want to leave comments on sections, do they have that in here?
Yeah.
They do. Okay. So that's good. So so then your clients can kind of leave comments on sections and stuff. So that's always nice to do, but they make it pretty easy to share. To me, it looks like when you hit share and just share the links, or if you just save it as a JPEG image, it's going to be a big JPEG image, but you can do that too if you need to.
Yeah. And like, there's not typically a way from straight XD to go from this to live. There are some tools like Anima that you can use to go from this into a live version of it. But Keshia's process, it seems like for you, you're exporting the assets from a design file, just like the image or like the image with the blobs, right? And that's kind of what you're using into Squarespace.
Yep. So I just export all my images like this. So like all these photos would be saved, and then this text part, it would be a text block in Squarespace or with the Divi Builder. Like the Divi Builder has text blocks, Squarespace has text blocks. So all I really need to save is just more so the imagery, and then the rest of it is just text blocks. And then you can add your button as a button block as well. Once you're on a website builder, whichever website builder you choose to use.
Yeah. And for anyone who wants to know how to export something like an image or a graphic, you can just literally hit File, Export, and as a JPEG or PNG in order to export those assets from XD. Okay, we have from Dopegasm. If you come across a brand that needs your help, do you pitch to them? If so, how? So we're talking about sales and pitching now. What's your process?
Yeah, so that's one of the strategies I tried when I first quit my job, because I was trying to hurry up and book clients like ASAP. But I will say for me, I probably didn't stick with it long enough, to be honest, but that didn't result in clients for me. And then one lady, I think she was just sensitive. She kind of got offended. She was like, "Why do you think I need a rebrand?" I'm like, "Oh, my bad." I'm like, I wasn't trying to be rude or anything. I was just trying to help out. But when I tried to pitch people, I didn't really get any responses, but I didn't pitch very many people. So it's probably my fault. But yeah, I've done better with just kind of letting people come to me with the promotion I do on social media. Even though it takes time, but I guess either way it's going to take time, because with pitching you would have to probably pitch a lot of people and wait to hear back, and then with social you kind of have to post and build your following and wait to hear back. But yeah, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, I agree. Like for me, I don't want to pitch someone. That's not my strength. I don't want to sell someone. And so content marketing, putting stuff on social media or blogs or what have you, people like you and they come to you and they're excited to work with you, and you don't have to do any like intense sales pitch. So I found that is definitely my preferred mode. But to your point, it does take a while to build that content and to build that audience and for people to notice your work. So it's a little bit of a longer route, but it's like easier in the long term, right?
It is. Yes. Yep. And then I guess one thing with pricing too, this is why I always recommend like pricing packages versus pricing too cheap hourly. Because if you, even if you just book a handful of people, but you have prices that are up in the thousands of dollars, then you can still make enough money to survive, even though you may not have a huge amount of clients yet. So yeah, so you can afford to wait.
Yeah, you could practice during that time, as you're doing it, and share that process. And there's lots of things to do in between getting that client. We got about 30 minutes left of this stream. For anyone who's just joining, we are creating, I'm not going to say he's just creating a landing page for a wellness client. She does a lot of client work where she works with consultants and speakers, and she's showing her process of how to create an effective landing page and talking about her process, her struggles, her wins, and what strategies have really worked for her as a freelance designer and someone who's 4 years now into their business. So we've been getting lots of great questions, lots of interesting, amazing insights and tips from you, Keshia. So we're really thankful for that. And to Rose, this is being recorded. So anyone who's just joined, like, you get to watch this from the beginning and get all the tips and tricks. Don't worry if you're like, I missed most of them. Don't worry. This is forever available to you. So where are we at now in your design?
So saving it. I know this is a breaking a designer rule. I haven't hit save the whole time we've been designing, but yep. So saving it now. And then I added a little testimonial section down here underneath the like the section about her services, because this will be a little short description of the consulting if it was real copy here, and then a short description about her speaking if there's real copy right there, and then a little credibility booster with a testimonial section here, and this could be a little slider, like a little testimonial slider there. And then we're almost to our last couple of sections. I want to do a short about section, and then one more with like a little quote to kind of close the page out, and then the footer space. And in the footer, I like to always repeat the email opt-in again in the footer, even though this is a one pager, but it's especially helpful on multiple page sites, because that way the email opt-in is on every page that someone might visit on a client's website versus just on the home page. So it's always nice to put your email opt-in in the footer again. It's a good tactic.
Yeah, that's great. We had a question from Voodoo Val, which is, what is something that you've learned during your career the hard way that you can give us any advice on?
Oh, the hard way. Oh my gosh. I feel like one of the things to me that was the biggest issue was like paying for the wrong business coaches to me. Because to me, the most helpful coaches ended up being people who taught something kind of more skill specific. So like I had one program that was specifically around like LinkedIn marketing. And then I had one that was specifically around organizing your design business. And those were like the most helpful, but the people who were kind of more like, yeah, scale to 6 figures and do all this kind of stuff, those were like kind of the least helpful. They were okay, like not horrible, but they were tended to be a lot really overpriced. So I guess one thing I learned the hard way is like, if you are looking for a coach, to me, the skill specific people, if they're kind of targeted more around a specific area versus the glitz and glam of like make 6 figure kind of thing. And if they are kind of talking in more glitz and glam, like let's make 6 figures fast, really learn what their curriculum is going to be before you invest. Because like one guy that I invested in, he was helpful, but his investment was so high to where his top strategy was use Facebook ads, but I was paying all this money to him, so I didn't have much budget for the ads. So I'm like, well, this wasn't the best strategy. Yeah. And then one coach, she was really good at like marketing and making her brand look fun. Like if you want to go have fun, you can have a lot of fun with her, but the coaching was very lackluster. So I should have got more details on like what was her curriculum going to be. Because I think if I would have seen that ahead of time, then I would have known like, okay, there's not much substance here. I probably could meet some cool new people and maybe go to a fun retreat and dance. But I'm not going to like learn that much to push my business forward. For what she was charging, it wasn't worth just having fun and meeting new people. It's like, there's other ways I can do that. So choosing skill specific business coaches is one of my big hiccups, but yeah,
it's hard to understand who to guide you and what's the best direction to take. And I've also just started hiring business coaches myself in the last 4 months. So I've worked with 2 business coaches now as well. So it's like, which is the right one for me? It's like picking out a therapist, which is the right one for me, or picking out anything in life, right? Because maybe something works for one person, but it might not work for you. For that to be, understood as well, I think that's really important. So we have another question around like, what are you looking for that you think is going to really add value to your business? You talked about a developer. You talked about you've hired a social media person, but that didn't work out. Is there anything else you're imagining or you're seeing right now that could really add value to your business?
I would say definitely the developer and the someone to do the graphic design part. So whenever I do have graphic design requests, that'll be helpful. And then one person I didn't mention, I have a guy doing search engine optimization for my site. So even though I'm a web designer, a lot of times people think we do search engine stuff too. And I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I haven't really wanted to learn because I don't have time. So I do have somebody I just got in December to help my site rank better in search engines for the terms that like my target clients will be searching for. So compared to what I was paying for coaching, he's not bad. I've got us like $500 a month for that. So I'm trying to give that at least 6 months because I just started it like in December. But I'm hoping eventually that'll kind of relieve me from social media a little bit later, because I always say, I'm like, I want to disappear from social media, but that's my top lead source, that and referrals. So really I need a combination of both. Right now I can't like stop. But if the search engine part pays off, then that could be a good thing to get more leads, so I can kind of fall back on the social media posting. So that could be helpful.
Oh, got it. So you're thinking about the SEO strategy for your own site, but also is that something you're thinking as well for your clients, or a service that you could provide to your clients or recommend, or is it mostly just for yourself?
Yeah, just for me, because like I'll recommend like the guy I've used to clients to use, because I don't really know the ins and outs of how to best do it myself. But I'll recommend it to them sometimes, like if they are kind of wondering like, how can I get more traffic to my website? Because sometimes people they're like, yeah, I have a website up, and they just kind of freeze up and just stop, and I'm like, okay, you have to get some traffic over there, because if you have a beautiful site, nobody's seeing it, then it's not going to benefit you as much. So I'll recommend it to them sometimes.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that's a great point to make around yourself, to the point of being social media shy and not really wanting to go that route, is like, well, maybe there's another marketing strategy like SEO that you can be thinking more strategically around. So I like that.
Yeah.
So what are you doing now? You're moving things about.
Yeah, you're trying to add one more quote, like under the about section, like a little quote section on some kind of wellness seed type quote, for kind of decoration to sort of close the page out a bit. And I want to change the color down here and probably right align it down here to just mix it up, since it's left aligned at the top, and then maybe move it over there. Yep. And then we'll do our footer area. I'm just gonna click. There we go.
We got some great advice from Chris. Chris has asked if you've tried Pinterest. That really helps Chris's SEO because Google loves Pinterest.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Pinterest. Yeah, I used to use it a little bit. I got like one lead off from Pinterest back when I was doing it. Maybe I might not have stuck with it long enough, but it did give me a lot of site traffic though, for sure. But they weren't scheduling discovery calls for some reason with my services. I'm like, maybe I'm not saying the right things in my Pinterest post. I don't know, but it is a good lead. Yep. It definitely boosted my traffic for sure.
Interesting. Yeah. It's like, maybe you get more people onto your site, but then are they converting? And that's another thing to look at, like, well, why aren't they? And so that's an interesting avenue that I've never tried or have heard of. So that's great. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to put our little opt-in down here one more time. Sorry. Repeat that.
For anyone who's on YouTube, we are actually on Behance. Please come join us on Behance. That's where we're having this pop-in conversation with everyone, asking so many great questions, and really are super engaged with you, Keshia, because people are super excited. I think there are so many people who are like, maybe I can't get this dream job right now. Maybe people want to go freelance and start their own business right away. And they're not sure where to start. So I think that this is such a great stream for people to understand how to grow your business on your own as a freelance designer.
Yes, good. It's definitely good to be helpful. I love talking the business topics. So there was so much I didn't know when I got started. I just jumped into it clueless, kind of winging it. So any tips I can share, definitely happy to share. Forgot how to spell this word. You
are bringing back that second call to action towards the bottom of the screen. You said that is the footer, or like that you're going to have this email input for all pages? Is that right?
Yep. So it'll be part of the footer, the little, I like to repeat the email download in the footer when I design. So I'll usually do like a top footer and bottom footer. So the footer part would probably be like the top footer, and then the bottom, I like to put the little icon, like a logo mark or something small from the logo in the footer. And then whatever the business info. We may want to share like the website credit, the business information, privacy policy, all that little stuff. So this will be more like the bottom footer area. That kind of small. I like to make this really tiny when I do website. I don't like it to be big, even though it's zoomed in, they'll be able to see it, but I just like it small. I feel like it's missing some stuff here. Let's maybe center it and center the V.
And when someone has like a site like this, where they're a consultant and a speaker, do you talk about both services just as equally, or how do you know which one to kind of like prioritize in the design?
So that is one thing I try to get an idea from them of like what's the top priority for them to book the most of. So I'm like, what's your top service that you really care about attracting people to? And then I'll make that one, have them probably make that more prominent, like in their website copy. And then the other one, like a smaller section about the other one, just to kind of have it on there. And then when I do one-page sites, I do like to use these like jump to links. So like this services link in a real website, this would be a jump to link where when they click it, it would jump down and pass all this benefits, pain point stuff, and just jump straight to here's how you can work with us in consulting and speaking. Because for this particular project, I made it short. So a lot of times for consulting, we would probably have more like a consulting take up this full section here versus sharing it with speaking. But for this project, I just did sharing it with speaking. And then speaking would probably be in a different section. But when you click the jump to link, it'll jump down to the appropriate section and kind of feel like it's going to a certain page, but it's on one page. But anyway.
Got it. Yeah. And is your clientele mostly, are they consultants and speakers, or are they kind of how do you define your particular client? Was that something you originally started with, like, this is who I want to attract? Or was it like you got a couple clients and you're like, oh, okay, this is what people are coming to me, I'm going to like focus in on them? What came first?
Yeah, so it was definitely, I would design for anybody who wanted design. In the beginning, it was really random. I had like music artists to like doulas to like event planners, or just anybody, like everybody. And then after, even an online store, just different things. But after kind of working with different people, I decided like, okay, I see these people in this industry seem to have a big need for it, like in this consulting speaking, because most of them are consultants and speakers, or coaches and speakers, because they tend to do both, because I guess speaking is a good way for them to get exposure for what they do. So most of the time they do both. And then I was like, their image really matters. So they seem like a good audience to market to, who cared about their image. Because sometimes in solo entrepreneur world, if you're going after certain entrepreneurs, not all of them care about their image so much. Even though I feel like we do as designers, and we're like, what are you doing with this ugly website? But to them, they don't care, and they still can thrive with a really bad website. So I was like, okay, I want an industry where people actually care about their image. They have a need, they have a budget, because they tend to make a good amount of money in what they do, to where they'll have a budget for web design. And I didn't like e-commerce sites either. I was like, I don't want to build those. I just want to do service sites. So after working with a bunch of people and considering what would make a good target client for me, then I landed on the consultant, coach, and sometimes other professional service providers, like the way I had the therapist, or every now and then I just got my first personal trainer who wants to do like high-end personal training, and that kind of thing. So I get a few other service providers too. Did you find that when you did define who that customer is, that it helped your business like attract more clients, or was there any connection to that? It definitely helped. To me, it helped. I will say I was attracting a good amount, but to me, the quality got better. Like the quality of client, like I got people who were a little more serious about what they were doing. So it would make my job as a designer a little bit easier, because I'm sure all of us have had people who kind of were, if you design for solopreneurs or small biz, you probably have people who weren't taking their businesses that seriously. So then you're kind of like, oh, this is hard for me to work with this person. But with the niching down like that, it definitely helps me to attract more serious people. And then I think they like that they see people in their industry in my portfolio and stuff. So it makes them feel more comfortable, like, oh, okay, she's worked with people in my industry, so she understands what I do. Even though I feel like all of us as designers, we could probably understand for the most part what anybody does, but in the client world, they always think they want you to understand them. That's how. So people, yeah. So they kind of like that. They're like, yeah, she's worked with people just like me, so they feel a little more comfort with that too. So
that is a very, very important point there, which is like, we as designers do know how to design for anything and any occasion. But to attract a certain clientele and be known for something, that's what we're trying to, to keep getting that same clientele. You want to be well known in that industry. And so if you are niching down, you are going to attract more people. So that is something to focus on when you guys start freelancing now after this live stream, to think about who that audience is. And the other good point you made, Keshia, was like, well, I want to not just attract a certain type of audience, but this audience should have the money to be able to afford my services, right? So that's a big point. And then also have enough of a need for my services. So we want to find that sweet spot, because we don't want to be selling to people who are just like, sure, I guess, right? Because then it's like harder work for us. So I think those are some really great points there for people who are just starting out. We have, I'm not sure what this question means. Maybe someone can help me. What program do you recommend to create a talking avatar? Is that?
So that's actually not something I've done. I'm not
okay, me either. Maybe someone else has that answer.
Yeah. I want to learn that. I need to learn that myself if somebody knows how to do it.
We have a travel junkie L asks, what is the most important piece of advice you have for someone exploring web design as a new career?
The most important, so I would say definitely have a curious mindset and just be open to just continuously up leveling your skills, because there's so much you're not gonna know from day one. But if you're just kind of a curious person and you don't mind learning new things and teaching yourself new things. Oh, and I will say being very self-aware with yourself too. So like if there's areas where you may want to improve, like or just areas that you notice you're not that strong in, don't be afraid to be honest with yourself and be like, okay, I want to improve this, so let me go find the resource or find a free class online or some class in person. There's so much free stuff online. You don't even have to pay for classes nowadays. But always be curious and willing to find resources to help you learn and grow. Because that's, to me, the people that go the furthest is the ones that are up leveling their skill set as they go along, and not just staying stuck or just like, yeah, this is the best I can do, I'm going to be stuck right here. You don't want to do that. No.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Where are we at now? You're opening a new file.
Yeah, so we're pretty much done with the page now. So I could do a little bit on one other project. I need to start on a wire mock-up for that I haven't had time to start on. So we could kind of play around with that if you want. But I guess I could recap this page. So we have the logo up here, and then the services and speaking. These would be jump to links. I should have did about instead of contact, because since we got an about section. So yep. And then we have this would be the headline benefits section. So if it was a real life project, definitely should be way more persuasive than this, but I'm not the copywriter. I just plug some words in here. But some type of heavy hitting benefit in this section with a button, call to action for the top call to action for the client. So for this particular client, it would be schedule a discovery call, and then a nice fresh office related photo there. And then download the free guide. So the secondary call to action is to get on their email list, which is a good thing to remind clients about, because a lot of the traffic isn't ready to buy today. So capture those emails with some kind of free incentive. So having the email sign up. And then this would be a little pain point section, kind of saying, does this sound like your employees? So talking about like, yes, are they stressed, struggling to meet deadlines, just what's going on with your target clients. So kind of overviewing that there with another button. And I repeat buttons a lot in my designs, because I always tell clients, I'm like, you're not really sure where somebody is going to, on the page, they're going to decide to want to take the next step to schedule the call. So you don't want them to have to scroll all the way back to the top or all the way back to the bottom. You want it to be easy. So that's why I have so many discovery buttons. And then our nice little image there. And then a little kind of like decorative quote here with an image here. And then this section would be like a benefit section. So kind of overviewing the benefits of the client services before we get into the specifics of the services. So then down here would be like, okay, here's how you can work with us, and here are the specifics. So one way is consulting, and then one way is by hiring them as a speaker. And then this would be a little blurb about their consulting services, and this would be like a little blurb about their speaking services with buttons again, lots of buttons. And then our testimonials section. So this would be like a testimonial slider, and testimonials are good to, of course, boost the credibility of the client. So you definitely want some testimonials on there from any of their past clients. And even if you have a client who maybe they're new to their business, they can use people who they work with for free. Those can still be testimonials for them too. So that was like my first testimonials were people who I did websites for free. Nobody knew. It was just still good to put somebody on there who could vouch for your work. So another button, schedule a discovery session, and then a little about the founder section. So this could be like an image, maybe with the founder speaking to a client or something. And then a little paragraph about them with their background, because this is a good credibility booster too. And then another schedule a discovery session button, and then a little one more quote here to close it out, and then repeating the email sign up section right there. And the V complements the logo. It's like a little logo mark for the logo up at the top. So
yay, great job. It was like so wonderful to hear your process and kind of like give everyone who's listening a template as well that they could even start with for their own freelance clients if they want to do a landing page. So I think that this is such great information. We have a question from Alicia asking, do you have a portfolio or a website that you're open to sharing with everyone?
I do. It's KeshiaMWhite.com. So it's KESHIA, and then M as in Michelle, and then WHITE.com is the website. And then on their site, you can click portfolio and go to my portfolio tab, and then you'll be able to check out any of my past projects right there. Yeah.
Great. Yes. And I think a couple of people have been asking this question around how you market yourself. And I just wanted to like recap it for everyone that you mentioned LinkedIn is where you get most of your clients. You have a structure where you do 3 posts, business posts a week, and then 1 personal post a week. And that's primarily where you're getting your clients as well as referrals. Is there anything I'm missing there for how you market and convert?
No, those are the top ways, and I'm waiting. I do want my search engine optimization to click in eventually, kick in eventually, but it hasn't quite yet. So it's been so far primarily LinkedIn and referrals, and I'll just post on Instagram and Facebook just to do it. But I don't really see a lot of leads from there. But that's it.
Yes, I love it. I love that you're like tried all these different things and that you found this one place that's really working for you, and it's free for you to market yourself. And that's where you're getting a ton of clients. And so, everyone listen up, try it out, practice it, see if it works for you. So we've got about 10 minutes left. You said you're going to give us like kind of a sneak peek what it's like to actually work on a real client project with you.
Yeah.
What is this?
Yeah, so I have one. So this is for a consultant. She does, I forget because, but it's like HR, workforce development, something with diversity. And yeah, she kind of does a couple of things in the consulting space, but it's primarily workforce development and diversity. And the business is called Reimagine Talent Company. So this was one where we kind of she had a brand, she had an existing business. So she's getting the multiple page project and not a 1-pager. And she hired a copywriter, and I have 40 pages of copy to design things. I know, I'm like, she did not play with writing. So I have to start on the wireframe soon, but anyway, but this was her mood board. And in her previous brand, she had this mustard yellow in there already. And she wanted to hold on to that because a lot of times I try not to look, well, with me, when people have an old brand, I don't like to let that like sway me, I guess, in creating something new. Cause I'm like, you're coming to me for a new rebrand. I don't want to like repeat what you have, but she wanted to keep her mustard. But the color, the coral and the blue were new colors that we went with for her mood board here. So we wanted like a very innovative, since it's called Reimagine Talent Company. And she wanted to really foster like connection in the workplace and kind of like hope. So that's where these 3 words came from, for like hope for like a better team environment or a better functioning workplace, and just an innovative, fresh approach. So the overall look and feel we were going for was just innovative, fresh, but still polished and professional, which is why and she wanted to do a 3 color palette. So that's why we stopped at 3 here for her, just these 3 colors. So, yep. So that's kind of the summary there. And then her logo here over in XD, this is the logo we went with, that I ended up designing for them. It's, this is like a triple, a tricolor triangle, we call it. I always forget to scoot over with XD. It's over. But it was meant to kind of like represent a mosaic. So one of the words that came up, in her strategy session with the copywriter, because when clients hire the copywriter and hire me, I have our services bundles. So the copywriter actually did her kickoff call and she just sent the notes over to me. So we didn't have to take them through 2 calls. So the word mosaic was coming up in her notes. So I was like, okay, how can I illustrate like mosaic in the brand colors? And then I kind of had that triangle pattern in there anyway as her accent pattern over here. So I was like, oh, I could kind of create a little icon from the triangles to represent a mosaic over here in the logo. So we have her.
I love that. I totally see the mosaic, and those colors are so cute and playful together. So I feel like that really does that service.
Yeah, thank you. So so we kind of came up with that here, and her copy. Actually, that copy document is so big. Maybe this wasn't a good one, but I'll go ahead and pop some of the images, start on her graphic. So I have a folder here with a lot of stock images that I've been picking out to match her look and feel for the business. So since we have this kind of like playful, colorful look and feel on the images, and she wanted the images to really focus on diversity too. So we have images with different diverse employees to represent. So I've been trying to think, even though I haven't started it yet, like what image do I want to represent her for the top banner area? Because I like to pick a really good, impactful one. I'm still not 100% sure if I want employees up there or just objects. Honestly, I think I'll probably go with like an objects type image like this. Do
you find that most of your clients need stock, or do they ever provide you with like their own imagery?
So most of them do end up needing stock images. Oh, and I will say one little thing. So this is something I learned the hard way with images. If they do give you images, I give them like a brand photography style guide. I just kind of made that up. But sometimes I would get people who, when they did bring me images, they would bring images that did not coincide with the mood board at all. Like it would be like, well, did you pay attention to the mood board? So it would just kind of throw the like project off a lot. So after that, I was like, okay, let me create a style guide to give people. So if they do get pictures taken, they can get them. Like this client, she didn't get pictures taken. I created a little guide for her. Actually, I can pull that up to show what it looks like. Yeah, because it has right now. Yeah, because this definitely helps for the people that follow it. It helps get images that match their brand a lot better. So our designs look better, because the more you can guide people on the photography, the better your website is going to turn out as a designer to make your portfolio look a little bit nicer. So it's
the photography makes or breaks the design, especially if it's like primarily images that we're using. So I think that's a really good point there.
Yeah, because sometimes clients, I don't know, I guess they kind of forget that part, or sometimes and they just kind of like will give over any kind of pictures, and I'm like, oh, I give you this complimentary guide, and I'll even, for some people, if they need photographer suggestions, I'm kind of extra. I'm like, yeah, here's a list of 3 photographers in your area who do great work, and I try to kind of help nudge them along in that area after the beginning days of people would just be a little more careless with their pictures. But
yeah, I love that you can help, like not only give them a guide, but maybe even some recommendations for who might be a good fit for them to do good photography. So that's great advice.
Yeah.
We also had a question here around your package deals. They're asking how you would handle additional services like video editing or whatever else. How do you handle those additional services?
So if it's an additional service that I can actually do, I'll kind of bill it by my hourly rate. So like for her, for example, she ended up requesting a bunch of collateral. This is kind of why I'm behind on her page mock-ups, because I've been making all this stuff. And I'm like, none of this is really anything to do with the website, but I'm glad she's concerned about her brand cohesiveness, because it's going to make her brand look really good overall to have everything that matches. Because sometimes people have this great website and they don't care about the rest of their brand, and then it's not cohesive. But for stuff like this, like I was like, okay, for me to do design your toolkit, design your business card, or these PowerPoint slide decks, that's not like typically in my scope of work. So I bill it based on my hourly rate. That's the only time I get hourly is if they already are working with me for like a bigger package, and then I'll bill the add-ons on the hourly rate. And if it's totally out of my wheelhouse, like video editing is something I definitely am horrible at, I'll try to recommend an expert to people, because I like to know somebody that I could send them to, at least know of someone. But then if I don't know of anybody, I just have to just apologize and be like, hey, I don't know of anybody that does this. Sorry about that. If I come across someone, I'll let you know. This isn't even loaded in my photo guide, but anyway.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. So you do an hourly for anything additional, basically. Great. And the
items.
Yes, great. And the other question they're asking is, you talked about the psychology behind colors. Do you have any resources for anything that you use or recommend around the psychology behind what colors you choose?
Yeah, so I usually just kind of Google articles on it, and then the article will pull up that I want. I'm trying to think of what, I feel like there was a good one on like HubSpot that had some info on that. But I just typically Google brand color psychology, and some top ones that come up, they'll be really, really helpful. And I just kind of click on those, but nothing too formal on that.
Yeah, I do the same thing. Just Google it. They kind of all say similar things around the colors.
They do. So. Yeah. So it's like, okay, I know they're not making it up, because this other article says it too. So, yep.
And then we have a question from Haley, which is, how do you deliver your assets? So maybe like those business card and all that you have here, how do you hand those over?
Yeah, so with those, I'll hand them over like at the end, after the final payment has been made, in a Google Drive folder. So I'll have a folder with sections. So like all the collateral items will be in a section, all the logos and brand design items will be in a folder, and just kind of dividing things up in folders for the client so they can make sure can find stuff easily. So just like that in Google Drive, and just invite them over.
Okay, so you found what you're looking for then.
They finally opened my photo guide. So this is just an example. This is the photo guide that this client got. She hasn't got photos done yet, but this is a guide to kind of help her along. So it recaps what the look and feel was for the mood board. So how it was meant to feel: bold, colorful, joyful, modern, the happy team members collaborating for that hope and excitement she wanted to convey. Then the mosaic pattern. So kind of have little descriptive words, and I'll even put the color meanings with mood boards too when I design for people, to kind of let them know like what these colors mean. Because I kind of over communicate stuff like this a little bit. So
that's important.
Yeah, because it helps
Good
people
tip.
see like, okay, this is why she picked this. So it's a little more, it'll connect back to the meaning behind their brand. And then in the photography guide part, it's really just one page, but I'll say the goal of the photos is to express a sense of fresh innovation and professionalism. And then I kind of give them some recommendations for the poses, like exude confidence and authority with some personality. And recommended settings should include a white office or against white background, because sometimes people will pick backgrounds that, like, you know how we as designers, we could kind of visualize like, yeah, this will look great, like with a nice white clean background, but then they'll go stand in front of like a random blue wall. That's like nothing to do with it. So I try to recommend backgrounds to make it really easy for everybody. And then try to recommend outfits, make sure they're professional, and have your brand colors, or at least neutrals if they can't do their brand colors. And then I may recommend poses. Sometimes people wonder, how should they pose? And then just recommend the hair and makeup part since, because even when I got my brand pictures taken a few years ago, the makeup piece, I was like, do I really need that? But the photographer kind of told me to do it. And I'm like, oh, this professional makeup really did help my pictures come out a lot better. So I recommend that for clients. So over here, like to the right, we kind of have little notes on like, these are the poses. This is actually from Pinterest, these people over here. For like some recommended looks. I definitely recommended some nice blazers and just nice blouse with like bright, colorful colors and nice white clean backgrounds, because since her brand was really bright and fresh to kind of connect back to the mood board, was wanting like backgrounds like this and outfits like this. And then this other side to the left is kind of like recommendations on stock images. So just so they can kind of know where I'm thinking for the stock images that I'm going to pick out for them. And then also for them to know too. So if they end up picking out stock images later, so they can kind of be like, does the image look and feel like the images in my photography guide? And then the last little page is a recommended shot list. Because sometimes people, the photographers, sometimes they'll give you all these vertical images when we know as designers, websites kind of flow horizontal. Because I had a lot of people just give me just vertical images, and I'm like, that's kind of hard to use just vertical images all over your website. So, okay, I see.
This has been so helpful. Thank you for sharing this photography guide, and for everyone who's starting their own freelance journey. This is such a valuable resource that you just shared with us. And you just dropped so many knowledge bombs right, left, and center throughout the last 2 hours. And it's been such an active chat too. So it just shows like how engaged people were with you, Keshia, and how appreciative we all are of everything that you shared today. And I am like, for everyone, please, we put the link to Keshia's site for you to continue to follow her on LinkedIn to get that one personal post a week that you see and learn from her, learn from what she does and apply it to yourself. I'm so thankful again for you, Keshia, to come onto the air and show us all of your process. And thank you everyone for joining. And don't forget to stay tuned for the XD Daily Creative Challenge Encore with Brandon Gross. That's immediately following this stream. Thank you again, Keshia.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for being a great host. And thanks everybody for tuning in and all your activity in the chat. It was definitely appreciated.
Yay. All right. Bye everyone.
Bye.
Have a good rest of your day.